Well, welcome guys, and thank you so much for taking part of all of what we're doing here. And I'm just glad you are here with us. And we got another great video for you today. Today we're going to look at Lothal. And so I really enjoy Star Wars Rebels. It's one of my favorite cartoons that were out there for Star Wars. There's a lot of different ones. Was not a big fan of Ewoks and droids. That's what I had when I was a kid. But I really did like Rebels, and so that was one of those things that I loved drawing from. There was such beautiful scenery, and one of my favorite places, Lothal, and I think that it would make a great board for Star Wars Legion. So just before we get into the Lothal board, I want to remind you that on this video, you have a chance, if you like, subscribe, and comment, you have a chance to winning one of these, not painted, but a 3D printed full render of this hut, which is a beautiful hut. And if you like, comment, and subscribe, you will get your name put in the winning, and that draw will be drawn mid-March. And so we're excited about that, being able to give away a couple things. There's a couple of other little prizes I'll give too if we get to a certain number of subscribers that I've been trying to get to. And so that's the little prize. And so like, subscribe, comment, and you have a chance to win that prize. Now, that's just before we get started. I want to talk a little bit about Lothal and what brought me to this thing. So I love the scenery of Lothal. If you can see here, these are three pictures that kind of thought about the first one in the top corner is Tarkin Town, and then there is another Tarkin Town over on the other corner, and then below it's like a little smaller town. It's not really Tarkin Town, but it's kind of that town. There's also farmer villages. Now the farm villages, they had more like Tatooine style houses with fences and moisture evaporators. It kind of looked like it was almost Tatooine, but it was Lothal. But one of the key things you can see is in these pictures is the housing is kind of unique, and these are because they're Tarkin. Otherwise, the housing's pretty close. If you look at the bottom right, there's one off to the side. It's got that archway and that dome roof that is forever so famous from episode 4. And so that's kind of one of those areas. Now, what I want to do is not only give me the inspiration, because that was the inspiration. I want to look at a few files on how to get this on your page. Will help you pick the right buildings and right things for you, and get you in the game pretty quickly. If you don't have a 3D printer, you can buy them from places that print them, but you can also hand make these. First thing I want to show you is. Let's just take you to the next page. There is the rocks. Now these rocks here, the spiros, the great thing about 3D printing is that you can kind of mix and match and resize. One of the things I like about 3D printing is the fact that it can be sized a certain way, and you can make it move the way you want it. And so that's always kind of like good to be able to do. Because even like here, having to be able to resize makes it nice too, because the reality is you want to be able to do it. And so these are the 4 things that came. Now I printed these all out at 100%, and then I printed the small one here that I'm showing with a double. I printed it at 150. I printed this one at 175, printed this one at 75. I only printed this at 100%, but those are just kind of some of the different rock forms that you can see. Now, I'm going to show you how to paint these up real quick and easy and dirty in a few moments. But that's just one thing I wanted to show you. So that's kind of the thing. Now, if we go back to that page, so it cost me $5 for this file, and that gives me all those printings. And sometimes they add other things. I'm going to tell you that Imperial Terrain, which is where I get a lot of different terrain from, is very good to work with. They're very good. If they add something to the file, they give it to you in a download via email. And so it's been a really nice thing to have, and they print them well. And if you don't have a 3D printer, you can actually go on their site and buy stuff pre-printed. So you can look at all those different things. These are all pre-printed things. And so you can probably find that same set with a pre-printed version. And I haven't found it yet, but I'm sure you will be able to find it, because almost everything that you can get as a print file, you can get pre-printed, but you can't do the opposite. Sometimes they have things that are pre-printed that aren't. But so that's just some of the things you can get. And but I want to talk to you about the low cost stuff. So if you go to Thingiverse, you can download, and this is where I got my Tarkin Houses. And so this is the same picture that I used, and they've got a few different houses. They got shack number 1, shack number 2, shack number 3, shack number 4, shack number 5, and then they have the awnings that you can use for them. And so this is a good file. I'll put the link to the file down below. And so I've just made a couple of these shacks. I haven't made them all yet. And there's another one also on Thingiverse that is similar. It only has 2 shacks, and I made both of those. The quality of this one isn't quite as good as the other one. It's a little more blocky. So if you go back to the other one, it's got a little more windows. It's got doors. It's got buttons on the doors. It's just a little different. Now let me actually show you this is shack number 3, and so this is shack number 3 right here. And so you can see it's got stuff on the roof. It's got stuff in there, the blocks there, and it's got back. It looks beautiful. It's a beautiful print. Now I will show you the same sort of shack from the other one. And so this one here is, a little more blocky. It's still good. I'm not saying anything about one or the other. It's a bit bigger, blockier. The other one's got hollow inside. And so, and then there's another one that I've painted up as well. That is from the other one. And so one of the things when you're painting them, you want to make them dirty and rusty. But the other thing is I put little posters on them so that, I print those off with paper and then just put white glue over them. And, there's just a bunch of posters, inspiring people to be part of the rebellion or inspiring people to join the Empire. And so that's one of the things I did just to get it, to make it a little look better. And so now when I say cheaper, I mean that, because technically these things aren't free. You can get them all and you can take them all free, but really you should be tipping your designer. So right here there's a little button, and you can't, oh, there it is, tipping your designer. So you can see the little tipping designer button here, and that's what you do when you use it. So my rule of thumb is if I print something and I'm actually going to print it and use it more once, I'm going to throw a tip to that designer. So this guy, because I'm going to be printing more of his, I'll be sending a tip to him. And so, as I said, the best place to get your hills and stuff is at Imperial Terrain. They're really got a lot of good stuff. But as I said, you can get some things at Thingiverse. Now, if you don't have a 3D printer, as I said, you can get people to print it for you, get somebody in your group, give them money for the filament. But also, you can make this stuff by hand. It's not like you have to have a 3D printer to do all this. It is possible to make this stuff. It's not that hard. These are just cardboard. You can put awnings on. You can actually do it really well with a little bit of cardboard and styrofoam. The hills you could do with styrofoam. I got some of them I made in the past with the hills, the spiral, and I just put larger styrofoam and built my way up until I had the small styrofoam. And that was just the way I did the hills. And it's just easy to do. It's not that hard. Now, let me just take a quick look to the painting. Now, the hills are really easy to paint. I painted them with a total of 3 colors. And so here we go. We're going to go right over there. Wrong video. There we go. And so if you can see, I got 3D printed in blue, and that's just a print. The other one I've already given in the first layer of brown, which is cinnamon brown. And there it is there. I'm going to show you that. Cinnamon brown is just a craft paint. You can pick up $1 for $1. When I do terrain, I don't spend lots of money on paint. Now, my minis, I do spend money on good paint. But terrain, I slap it on. I try to do it quick and dirty, and just get it on there and make it look as good as I can quickly. I'll give it a quick spray after to give it some strength, but sometimes I will prime it first. Like normally I would prime it first, but I didn't have this one primed, and it's winter up here in Canada, and it's harder for me to get my priming, and my airbrush is actually in my garage, so, and it's freezing cold out there. So those are the things that I don't actually get out to do as much. I'm just going to quickly throw on some paint. Now I will seal this after so that it doesn't peel off. And so you can see it's not working hard on this. I'm just literally throwing the paint on, and not just making, the only thing I'm making sure is that I get it in all the cracks. So if you have to water it down a little bit to get it in all the cracks, then you do that. But I will be putting a homemade, like really homemade dirty wash on it, and almost too thick on the first one, but you'll have to, you can toy around with it, and then just dab off some of the excess, and or use your brush. And so the key here though is, as I said, just get it into everywhere. And when doing terrain, I tell you this over and over again, do not go out and buy expensive paints. Craft paints work good if you're doing a board, you're building a full board. Buy some tester things, or if you're doing a bunch of boards, buy a gallon of paint, because it's way cheaper, and you can color match anything. You can go to your Home Hardware, Home Depot, whatever, and they'll color match it to exact color you want. I just bring the color I like in my game workshop or army paint or whatever, and I put it on a piece of paper, and I get them to scan it, and I get color match. And that's a good way to keep your costs down, is to actually use the color match system. And so I'm just going to put a little bit more paint, because you want it nice going on. You don't want it, so I'm going to cover that up really good. And literally, as I said, I'm just really dabbing it on here, and I'm not trying to make it neat and clean, because I don't care at this point, other than the fact I'm working at my office desk and not my painting table. I don't really care too much about making it neat and clean. And so that's just going to slap them in, and that's plain old brown looking thing, and it doesn't look all that great yet. And then the next one, I'm going to throw, I use this one even though I already put a little bit of highlights on it, because you can do this too, highlight it a bit, then put the wash, but I use this one just because I needed something that was clean and dry. And so here I missed a couple spots when I did it last night throwing that on, and so I just touched up some of those spots because red was showing through. And so then I'm just going to take this big huge container, it's my mess bowl here, I'm going to put some more brown in there, and when I was just squirt a good amount of brown in there, and then I'm going to put some water in there, probably 2 to 1 water, 2 times the water, 1 time the paint. And so you're going to make it so it's nice and runny. You're going to show you here, nice juicy. Just see, now that's just basically the same colors I already got on there. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to add black to it, and so I'm just going to give enough black to make that a darker tone of brown, because what we're trying to do is get this into the shadows, and so that it will it'll mix in and make the inside of the rings dark. And so that's what I'm trying to do. This brush wasn't really good for doing this, to be honest. I would have used a smaller brush, because I didn't have much control. It just kind of went everywhere. And so, but that's life. And so I just want to give it a nice little drip in there, and get it in there nice and deep, and let it flow into the cracks. And when it dries, you'll see that those spots pop out a bit more. And this one, I'm just going to dry a bit of the surface off. It's going to stay in the cracks, but I just want to speed up the process. But not only that, I had so much because that brush was way bigger than I needed for that. And then I'll just set that aside and dry. And I'm going to grab one that's already to the next stage that has a bit of highlights on it, and then I'm just going to top it off with some dry brushing highlights. And so I'll get this stuff. I guess I want to put a little bit of highlights there first on this one. And so I'll work my way down and just give it a bit of, to give it more depth, and sometimes you can wet blend those in too, and just get that, and I'm just giving it a dab just to give it some color shade, and then we'll just, going to town here on it. And so that's kind of the next stage. Put that brush down, and I'm going to move that out of the way. As I said, I'm going to get another one for showing you a bit more of the dry brush and highlighting thing. And as I said, I already touched this one, so it's not that much. You can see I already did some of the highlights, so I didn't want to go too much higher on that. My paint is running out too, so that doesn't help any. So I just squirt that in there. I can mix it in a bit. It's an off-white. The actual color is acrylic white. And so it's just an off-white. Just squeeze it in there. And I can mix it a little with the brown, or I can keep it to itself depending on where I want the highlight. So on the first one here, I'm just going to mix it a little bit. And this is a makeup brush. I use that for most of my dry brushing. I probably would have went with a bigger brush here for, this is what I use on my minis. So this is a bit big for, a bit small for terrain, but you'll get the point. And then I just kind of brush in those highlights, after wiping some of it off the paint. Now this was a little too much paint still on it. It went a little brighter than I want, especially there. You see that spot there. But yeah, that's all you do is just kind of brush it on there. And so then when you're done brushing it on, you let it dry, and you might add another layer of a little lighter or something like that. My problem is I don't have the patience. Sometimes I go in too fast before it's dried. And then I'm just like, oh, why am I doing that? So just want to keep that up and keep the brushing it till you get your highlights the way you want it. And so that's it. That's about it. There's not a whole lot to this. And so, as I said, we're trying to get that look, and you can see those hills in the background of these pictures, and we're just going to be doing that. So just a reminder to everybody, if you are able to like and subscribe and comment. If you comment on this video or any of the other videos made during these next month and a half, you'll have your name entered into our draw for this wonderful 3D printed piece. And if you don't have a 3D printer, it's a good little house for you to start your collection with. And there you go. That's all it is going to be. And so please just like, subscribe, and comment. And thank you for taking part and being here until the end. If you stayed and watched the end, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. And I just appreciate the fact that you are taking the time to spend with me. And so we're going to be back. If you have anything you want to see, maybe you want a special board made or something, you want me to highlight some 3D prints that you were thinking about buying, but you're not sure if they're good, or, I'm willing to talk about them if I have them. And so just comment and ask and tell me what you want to see next, and I'll make sure I get that out to you guys. Thank you.